And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, December 6th. We made it to the end of the week. I'm Josh Engleman. I'm joined by DK. Nice. I pointed in the right direction. It never feels correct, but I like when I get it correct. 7-game slate ahead of us today. 1 game locking at 7, 2 at 7:30, 2 at 8, and 2 at 10. So we got a lot of opportunities to late swap. We did get some news earlier today, but we are still waiting on a couple pretty major pieces. I'm excited to see it. So let's hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. DK, what's going on, man? Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Doing pretty good. Kind of like this slate. I like the way I have late swap. I feel like a lot of the main slates recently have been like you have like an hour or so. So it's nice that we have like a normal slate, can make some adjustments. But yeah, ready to talk, break it all down, and hopefully end on a high note for the week. So.
How did yesterday go for you? Did you have any issues with Bob Carrington? How did the Spurs work out for you?
That was wild. So I was doing another stream and I was trying to figure out like because Bob Carrington on NBA.com, they had him listed as inactive. And then I saw someone else was talking about I think like Basketball Monster or someone said that like they were listing Carrington as inactive, but I couldn't find anything from the beat writers. So that was like super stressful because I was like trying to figure that out. It was like a huge news because like if he was not inactive, I was going to go slam Jared Butler. Or if he was inactive, I was going to go slam Jared Butler. Right. And then I had someone in my Discord literally they had a friend at the game and they sent a picture of Bob Carrington like in his warm-ups. So I'm like, oh, okay, I think he's going to play.
That's why that was all wild. I didn't play last night because we didn't have the playback show and my wife was out of town. So I just wanted to sit back, relax, and watch some TV. So shout out to episode 2, season 2 of Silo. That went very well for me. So I didn't really know any of that shit went down until I woke up this morning and Strategy Show was talking. They were like, "Oh, what did you do with Carrington?" I was like, what happened? Like, what did I miss here?
There was a lot of like starting lineups we weren't expecting either. Like the Spurs starting Sohan really tilts me because like Bassey still got ownership. I think he was still very popular and Sohan started at the 5. And so I was like, Bassey might DNP here. And sure enough, Zach Collins picked up 2 quick ones. So Bassey entered the rotation. But yeah, it was just like a wild slate. I did not win any money yesterday.
Just received a nice DM.
Is that me frozen or is that Josh?
From our producer extraordinaire, the good version. Was I frozen there for a bit?
I don't know if it was you or me.
Am I still frozen?
I think you're good. You're good now.
I don't know what's going on right now. I have no idea what's going on here.
Yes, I think it was you.
I looked at my screen and everything went away. See, this is probably Jacob because I talked so positively about Stylo here. Not a fan of season 2 so far. I really enjoyed the episode I watched last night. Maybe I enjoyed it more because I was chemically induced to enjoy it more. I don't know, but I thought it was a good episode.
Hey, that's always going to help, though.
I hope. Well, he and I are going to have a little bit of a chat. Well, not today because there is no in-between shows. We just throw Greg and Eric on here. Nobody cares about my takes on Silo. So what we're going to do right now is break down the first game. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, here we go, folks. Game number 1. It's definitely a game on this slate. Orlando, 3.5-point favorites in Philadelphia, 210 total. Now, for Orlando, they're basically the team that they always are. And that's nothing too crazy for us to deal with. They don't have any weird stuff going on yet. Although, who knows if they're ever going to change this lineup. Single-digit ownership to everybody on the DraftKings side. The most that we got of anybody. Actually, we got an update just before this show started. So instead of me talking about information that is slightly old, let me just toss these updated ownership numbers into my sheet quickly. Because I know that there's going to be like 4 guys that are 10% owned and change the way that I'm saying this, but I'd rather get it right.
Still looks like everyone's sub 10% to me.
Yeah, it's the last update that I had was from like 2:30, and nothing too crazy has happened since then. But let's just get it right. No reason to do it wrong. We got plenty of time to break down 7 games. All right, here we go. So yeah, single digit ownership to everybody on the Orlando side. The most that anybody is getting is 8% to Franz Wagner. The FanDuel side is a little different. Franz and Suggs both got over that 10% mark. Suggs actually got to 15. So the way you're looking at it right now, are you anticipating getting to much Orlando? Because just so everybody knows, this is the lowest total game on the slate. The next closest game is 10 points away. The highest game is close to 40 difference. And then it's the lowest pace game that I have by a mile. What do you like from Orlando?
Really not much. There's just so many like appealing games on this slate. Like we have the Lakers in Atlanta, we have Indiana, Chicago, Sacramento, and San Antonio, Utah, Portland. Those are all games that look really good. And then you have this game, as you said, super, super low total. So there's really not much ownership coming in here. And I agree. Like, I don't think there should be. Franz getting the most love, coming in around 8%, 9.5K. Like, you can always play Franz at low ownership, but, in a matchup like this, it doesn't really stand out to me. Jalen Suggs, has played 39 and 37 minutes over the last couple of games. The previous 2 games, he only played 27, but he fouled out in both. So clearly when he avoids foul trouble, like, they're going to give Jalen Suggs a lot of run. So like, he's playable in tournaments for that reason. And then the front court is kind of hard to predict what's going to happen on a night in, night out basis with the likes of Goga Batadze and Wendell Carter Jr. and Mo Wagner and Jonathan Isaac. So nothing I'm super confident in there. Wendell Carter Jr. played 31 minutes last game. Goga Batadze only 20. Isaac got a little bit banged up, only played 15 minutes. He's not in the injury report. And Mo Wagner played about 21. So like, if you feel confident in one of those guys, go ahead and fire them up. But I think they're kind of going to ride the hot hand there. And then I don't really think it's necessary to take shots in the likes of like Anthony Black or KCP. So yeah, pretty unappealing team.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, you end up with shares of Wagner, Suggs, KCP. Like, that's fine. They're not plays today. But in terms of like talking about somebody specific that you should get a bunch of, I don't think that exists on the Orlando team. It might exist less on the Philadelphia 76ers, who are currently projected for 9% total ownership on DraftKings. That is the second lowest amount on the slate. Well, tied for second. There are 3 teams that are below 10% ownership today. Philly is one of them. Andre Drummond is questionable. No Joel Embiid, no Bona. I don't think anybody else has gotten ruled out for these guys, but let me just double check. Nope, nothing else here. So we do have the Q tag on Drummond. Matters a little bit since Bona and Embiid aren't around for today, but not in any sort of crazy way. Those minutes would go largely to someone like Kenyon Martin Jr., and he needs every minute possible to be a good play. 8% ownership to a $7,600 Paul George on DraftKings. Only Yabusele and Maxey got to 1. 12% ownership to Paul George on FanDuel. Only Maxey and Yabusele got to 1. So the question is probably, do you like Paul George? But let's widen it out a little bit here. Do you like anything from Philadelphia?
Not really. I can keep an eye on the Andre Drummond news. If he gets ruled out, I think Yabusele's minutes will be a little bit more secure. But I do think Drummond plays. Yabusele at 6K has been starting at the 5 last couple games. He's played 33 and 37 minutes. So like, he's not out of play, but 6K price point, like, that definitely doesn't stand out. Paul George, the only one really getting any ownership, coming in sub 10%. The positive there is he did play 37 minutes last time out. He had been in competitive games, kind of hovering in that like low 30s minute range. So 37 minutes is good to see. At least we know that is in the range of outcomes. And he's at a reasonable price point. But again, just like really bad matchup against Orlando. Maxey's price is up. Like, he's going to play big minutes, but does not stand out at all. And some of these other like fringe guys were priced up a little bit when Paul George missed a game. So I think it's like really hard to get to anyone like McCain or Oubre or the Martins. So this game in general, I think is definitely the most unappealing game on the slate right now.
Yep, I completely agree. Total of 43% ownership. That is the lowest of any game on the slate. Although Milwaukee and Boston and Minnesota and Golden State are both close to that. They're all sort of in the same range, but Philly's running into an Orlando team that's a really good defense. The pace of this game is ultra low. There's really not a lot to like here. Like, I get the appeal of a maxi play in a GPP, but he's going to be behind a lot of guys before you get to him. I got nothing else here for Orlando or Philly. I'm assuming you feel the same way.
Yeah, ready to move on.
All right. Yeah, there are spots that are going to require a lot of conversation, and then there are spots that require basically no conversation. One conversation that I want to have quickly is you guys hitting the like button, which obviously helps us out all the time. And two, I want to let you guys know what we're doing for the rest of the day. We're going to go through game by game, take you all the way up until 6 o'clock. At that point, NBA Live Before Lock, Greg and Eric, they're going to go for an hour, take you all the way till 7 o'clock. At that point, Greg and I will be exclusively on playback.tv/Stokastic. We're watching the games. I don't know if there's any national TV games or anything like that tonight, but we'll put Orlando and Philly on to start. Probably swap to Milwaukee, Boston at 7:30 if we just want to watch a better game, or Lakers, Atlanta if we want to watch a more DFS relevant game. We'll be talking about late swap and actual ownership. We'll talk bets and all sorts of random stuff that ends up popping up. If you have a League Pass account, you could link it to Playback, watch the games along with us. If you don't have a League Pass account, we have 20 VIP passes that we'll hand out so that you guys can watch along with us. So it's 5:11 right now. We are not done covering the NBA for 2 hours and 48 more minutes. We're not going anywhere. Lots of us on a Friday, so join us. Game 2. This one's a little different. Basically, everything that we just said about that first game is the opposite of the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers are 5.5-point underdogs in Atlanta, 232 total. And based on that line, we have a Q tag on LeBron James Jr., Q tag on LeBron James Sr. AD is probable. Everybody that's normally out is out, including Austin Reeves. If the line is 5.5 right now, I have the line at 3.5, and I have LeBron in. That stands out to me that either LeBron is out and the line is going to move, or that he will be in and that line is going to drop like 2 points. I lean out for right now, but I have him projected in. And we are getting some ownership to this Lakers team. 25% to AD on DraftKings, 40 on FanDuel. 25 to LeBron on DraftKings, 30 on FanDuel. 50 to D'Angelo Russell on DraftKings, around 20 on FanDuel. Rui is about 10 on both sites. Dalton Connect is in and around 20 on both sites. Nobody's going to Christie, Vincent, Reddish, Koloko, Traore, none of those guys. It's the main starting 5 right now for the Lakers. Let's start here with the LeBron piece of this one. Let's assume he's in, since that's what the ownership is showing right now. What do you want to do here with the Lakers? Because I'm going to end up having a lot of these guys.
Yeah, even if LeBron is in, I think this is one of the better teams to target. So D'Angelo Russell has been in the starting lineup over the last 2 games with Austin Reeves out. He's getting the most ownership, and I agree. I think he should be. He's going to most likely play over 30 minutes, assuming this game does stay competitive. Averaging right now in the 2 starts, 53 passes made, 8.5 potential assists per game. Not a big surprise. It's really just him and LeBron kind of doing the playmaking for this team. So D'Lo definitely feels underpriced here in a great spot against Atlanta. So he looks really, really good. The 2 main guys, the 2 spend ups, I should say, Anthony Davis and LeBron, both coming in around 25%. I think both look like good options. I think I would slightly prefer Anthony Davis to LeBron, but again, LeBron does have the forward eligibility where there's a little bit of higher opportunity cost with Anthony Davis since he's only a center. And I think Dalton Connect is a really good value as well. He has struggled. Now keep an eye on the starting lineup. If LeBron is in, like there is a chance they could switch up and maybe throw a guy like Max Christie into the starting lineup because again, Connect has been struggling. So we'll monitor that. But assuming he starts, I think he's a pretty good value play, coming in about half the ownership of D'Lo. I don't think he should be coming in half the ownership of D'Lo, so I think he's a reasonable pivot, even though he is still getting some ownership. And then not really much other ownership going to these guys. Rui Hachimura, sub 10%, I think is like fine. I'm not going to go out of my way to play him, but doesn't really stand out. Christie at 3.3. If LeBron is in, I think it's a little bit tougher to get to him, but if LeBron gets rolled out, that's where he would look a lot better. He has played 20 plus minutes now in each of the last 5 games. Not a great point per minute player, but it's close to the min price. And then if LeBron gets ruled out, that's where things change. And that's like this team would look amazing. They already look good, but they would look amazing if LeBron gets ruled out. So
yeah,
on the season with LeBron James off the court, D'Angelo Russell has a 34% assist percentage. Anthony Davis has a 36.6% usage rate. So those two would look even better. Connect would look even better. Rui would look really, really good. And then you'd probably get like Christie into the starting lineup. We would even start looking at guys like Gabe Vincent and Cam Reddish too. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. I'm a little bit torn on the LeBron news. He hasn't missed a game yet. JJ Redick before the season said obviously he's not going to play all 82 games. So yeah, the line is interesting though that it's 5.5 because I feel like if LeBron was in, I agree with you. I think it would be probably like 3.5 or 2.5.
Yeah. So I think they're leaning us that way right now. In terms of like what I got to, I'm basically just holding hands with the field. 20% of AD, 24 of LeBron, 60 of Russell, 28 of Connect, a little bit of Rui, 2 shares of Max Christie. So I don't think these guys like separate all that much. I think the ownership is pretty efficient on everybody from LA. And I mean, the big total stands out. Mm-hmm. Pace stands out. Like I like every bit of what we're actually getting here. But I'm expecting that we are going to get the news that really makes this one look kind of nuts with LeBron out. Because they're not exactly deep right now. Like this is a team that is a bit hurt. And they certainly don't have like a lot of their bigs not playing. No Jackson Hayes, no Christian Wood, no Jared Vanderbilt. Like we're losing out on those 4 or 5 type dudes. So let's say we remove LeBron. Mm-hmm. Obviously, AD's ownership is likely to go up in that scenario, and he will look great. He'll be able to take on as much as he possibly wants to handle at that point. Russell goes from already being 50% owned to something higher than that because he's going to project a lot better. Rui probably takes on a couple extra minutes. His ownership gets north of 10%. Dalton Connect's already 25% owned. He'll certainly have more shots to take if he wants to. That ownership will go up. And then assuming Max Christie is the guy that gets the nod, it's either going to be him or Reddish, I would imagine. If it's Christie, he's going to be north of 10% owned. He's 3,300, small forward only. That'll be easy to get to. What do you do if it's Reddish?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because Reddish has not been great point per minute this year. But I think if he starts, he's definitely someone that you have to consider just because the price point. Like I think if he starts, you're probably getting at least 20 minutes upside of like close to 30 if he's playing really well. So even though Reddish has not been a great point per minute player on the year, he would stand out as a good value if he starts just because of the price point and the amount of minutes I think he would play.
Let's say it's Reddish that starts.
Okay.
How do you look at Christie at that point?
That's a good question. I think for me, I think I would still prefer Christie to Reddish, just because Christie's been ahead of him in the rotation. He's a solid defender. He's played relatively well for them. So yeah, if Christie starts, I think he looks great. If Reddish starts, I think Reddish is definitely in play for value, but I still think I would prefer Christie coming off the bench, but ownership would play a role there. Like it would have to, if like Christie was still like way more owned than Reddish, for example, and Reddish was starting, then maybe I would go to Reddish in that scenario. So like I would have to see ownership to make a final decision there.
Can't imagine there's any real scenario where I get to Gabe Vincent or Traore or Coloco. I don't like those guys. I don't think they're going to pick up enough here to matter or be good enough to matter. But yeah, that 5th starter, if LeBron is out, will carry some weight. If it ends up being Christie, he's just going to be pretty heavily owned. Even at the bad per minute rate, a $3,300 small forward is just going to get a lot done. Man, no LeBron tonight is going to be interesting if it happens. What will be really like the real problem here is when it happens at 7:01. Not that it's a problem because like late swap tools exist at this point. It doesn't really matter all that much. You'll be able to do whatever you need to do. But I would expect to not get this information until somewhere in the 6:55 to 7:05 range.
Well, the good thing is the only game starting at 6 Central is Magic 76ers. And that's like a game right now, at least for me, I'm kind of like crossing off.
Yeah, you're basically going to have free swaps across the board. So that it won't be too bad you'll have your whole lineup essentially to move it around if you need to. Anything else we need to touch on here for the Lakers?
No, I think we covered that pretty well.
Yeah. One note: if you're playing cash games, D'Angelo Russell is like the first name you click on. That should be without question. And then probably another one of these Lakers guys. Even like if LeBron's in, you're probably still getting to at least one more of these Laker guys too. Whether that's AD because salary works or Dalton Connect because position works or something. I wouldn't be surprised to see two Lakers pretty regularly in cash lineups. I thought Atlanta would look a little bit better here, but they have kind of just stabilized this team and stabilized their pricing. 10% ownership to Jalen Johnson, 10% ownership to Hunter, 10 to Capella, basically 10 to Bogdanovich, and basically 10 to Okongwu. Not much coming into Trae Young or Dyson Daniels or who'd I miss? Resache. I don't think we need to talk about Kobe Buffkin here. Single-digit ownership to everybody on the FanDuel side. I didn't really get any sort of major stands here. I'm a little bit over the field on Jalen Johnson, a little bit over the field on DeAndre Hunter. I'd say I probably like Hunter the most of anybody on the team, but I think they all just look basically like 10% owned guys. I kind of really agree with the ownership here.
Yeah, for me, I think Jalen Johnson's definitely the preferred option. I think he just like continues to go undervalued a little bit, kind of across the industry. Like he only played 32 minutes. I couldn't figure out why 32 minutes in that New Orleans game. But other than that, like he's usually playing mid to high 30s. He played 40 minutes against Milwaukee. He's just kind of doing everything for the team, right? He's a good rebounder. Over the last 5 games, he's averaging 65.6 passes made, 10.8 potential assists per game. The usage has been solid on him as well. So I'm higher on Jalen Johnson right now than the ownership. DeAndre Hunter, I think, is also a decent value play there at 5K. So he's right now second on the team in usage behind Trae Young over the last 5 games, 25% usage rate, consistently playing close to that 30-minute mark. So he's another pretty good play in the mid-range. As far as the centers go, Capella is 5'4", Okongwu is 4'4", similar ownership there. I think if I had to pick one of those two, I think I would lean Okongwu. The Hawks just kind of ride the hot hand there. Like whoever's playing better between the two, they will close with. So with Okongwu being $1,000 cheaper, if I was going to play a center, I think I would give the edge to him. He's also coming in a little bit less owned than Capella. Bogdanovich at 4.7K does have nice eligibility, shooting guard, small forward. He should be in that mid to high 20s minute range. Another reasonable value play. And then Richache is 3.9. He's fine because of the price point, but I don't really see the ceiling on him right now when this team is fully healthy. He was someone I was looking to more when like Hunter was out or Bogdanovich was out. Trae Young also not getting much love, coming in around 5%. I think he's a reasonable tournament play. Now, the usage hasn't been as great on Trae Young this year as it was last year. He's been a little bit more passive. But we've still seen ceiling games from Trae. Like we saw about 60 from him against Cleveland. So we know that like ceiling is still there. And again, this is a good spot. He's not getting much love. So I think he's another okay contrarian option. I don't think I'm going to get to Dyson Daniels. He feels a little bit too pricey. Again, I don't think it's necessary to get to Kobe Buffkin, but I think it's a pretty good team for tournaments. No one's really getting much love. I think the preferred option for me would be Jalen Johnson, but yeah, a lot of the main rotation players I think are good plays.
Yeah, they kind of all just look like solid. The most I got of anybody was Jalen Johnson at 14%. So I'm happy about that. He does look good. I wish he had an MPE, but he probably should just have power forward. So I don't hate it too much. I didn't get to much Trae. It's just like point guard's just loaded. Like you're already allocating quite a bit of exposure to D'Angelo Russell. We've got Maxey in the game previous, basically same price as Trae Young, unowned as well. Guys that have ceilings that you wouldn't be shocked when those kind of guys go off, but it's not super. I mean, you should be able to carve up the Lakers. They're already a bad defense. Hey, maybe they'll be better without LeBron.
I see some hate on Central Time in the chat. I don't know why. I think Central Time is the best time zone, to be honest. But
you are so mistaken. It's incredible.
For watching sports, I think it's the best.
No, it shouldn't even exist. There are only 2 time zones you could even acknowledge in the United States. Obviously, that's East Coast time and West Coast time. But I mean, personally, the most fun I ever had watching sports, and I mean this sincerely, was when I was in Hawaii and a Braves game started at 7:00 in the morning. I loved that.
What
That was fun.
like how many hours back is that?
6.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So like 1 o'clock baseball games start at 7 a.m.
That's pretty cool. But
yeah,
I mean I prefer like noon for NFL start, and then because I used to be in East Coast. And then if you're watching like a late game, you're up to like past midnight. So that's why I think Central is just a little bit better for watching sports.
The real answer is unfortunately the West Coast, but like for situations where like if you want to watch a UFC pay-per-view, you don't have to go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
like those spots get rough, and I'm all in for 10 a.m. NFL kickoffs on the West Coast. Like that's fun to me.
See, I wouldn't want to wake up like then if I'm doing content too, you got to wake up like 7 or something or 6. Like I don't know if I want to wake up that early.
I'm up at 5:30 every day. So
that's early.
That one doesn't register to me. I'm a morning person.
Yeah, see, I'm not. I'm usually up late, and I'm up around like 7:38 maybe, but yeah, like 5:30 I couldn't do that.
My only saving grace is that I need East Coast time for soccer. Like Liverpool plays tomorrow at 7:30. If I were waking up at fucking 4:30 in the morning on the West Coast to watch that, it would suck,
that'd be
man.
pretty
I would
brutal.
never see it. I would never see it. So I appreciate the East Coast from time to time, but when it comes to UFC pay-per-views, man, when they're not making their walk to the cage until 1 in the morning, I am usually struggling to get through it. Speaking of struggling to get through it, we're not going to do that here. Not on the Milwaukee side, at least. Bucks are 8.5-point dogs in Boston, 227 total. Welcome back to my boy. I've been waiting. Oh, I've just been waiting for so long for it to happen. Chris Middleton, probable today, coming back from bilateral ankle surgeries. Yes, that is, for those that don't understand, that is both ankles, which is not a great way to build up your cardio. Q-tag on Marshawn Beauchamp. I hope you guys don't care about that one. And then Q-tag on Taurean Prince. That was a late ad. He's on with an illness. Highest owned guy for the Milwaukee Bucks on either DraftKings or FanDuel is 3% to Giannis. This entire team is unowned. They're the lowest owned team on the slate. They're running into a Boston team that is only missing Kristaps Porzingis today. He's going to sit today. He will play tomorrow. Al Horford will not play tomorrow. You can kind of set that one in stone. Obviously, I am not going to tell anybody to not roster Giannis. If you get Giannis, cool. I understand. Doesn't look very good on paper. Add Damian Lillard to the box of Tyrese Maxey and Trae Young of like around 9K point guards that aren't getting owned in any way. I got 2 shares of Giannis and not a single thing for Milwaukee. I don't see it.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to get to this team. Like I said, your boy Middleton, clearly better than Jimmy Butler, right? But I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to play much. I think he's probably going to be limited to around like 15 minutes or so. So like I think they're going to be very, very cautious with Chris Middleton. So I don't think we can go there. Giannis at 12K would probably be the one guy I would consider on this team just because it's Giannis and he can go off in any matchup. But definitely doesn't stand out at that price point. There's other spend ups that just look better. Taurean Prince is questionable. I don't even think him getting rolled out would change much. Gary Trent Jr. is coming in around 1%. He has played a little bit more recently, 27 and 31 minutes. So like if he's shooting well, like he could play similar minutes again. So if you want to take like a shot in him in tournaments, I don't think it's the worst idea, but another very unappealing team.
Gordon, Gary Trent is definitely a bad value. I don't disagree with DK's take on him being rosterable if some of these minutes stick around. Shooting guard, small forward, 3,600. But in terms of value, it's bad. It's close to as bad as value gets for people. Gary Trent is terrible per minute.
Yeah, he's not good. He's basically, and he's very scoring dependent too. So if he's not making his shots, like he can kill you.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Where do I have him overall ranked? I know it's low, but I don't think it's like ultra low. Yeah, it's low, but not too low. He is the 57th worst per possession guy, but that includes a lot of dudes who like are barely in the NBA. So that's bad. But Shooting guard, small forward, 3,600 with the opportunity to fall into a couple extra minutes. I can get the path in a GPP, but 0.63 fantasy points per minute is where I have him right now. 3.9 fantasy points per $1,000. He's rough. Now we can talk about Boston because they're actually rosterable in a way that Milwaukee isn't. Not a lot, but Tatum's 10%. Jaylen Brown's basically 10. Derek White's 10. Drew Holiday's 10. No ownership really coming into Al Horford here. I didn't get anybody as a priority, but I basically have 8% of all of the guys that I just mentioned. I'm kind of most intrigued by Al Horford, oddly enough. 4,900 power forward center, 3% owned. Feels like his kind of matchup too, where they play him, like especially knowing that he's sitting tomorrow. Like he is just going to rest. Mm-hmm. So I would not be surprised in any way if he played like 32 or 33 minutes like we've seen him do. He's intriguing to me, but if you get to Tatum, Brown, White, or Holiday, I mean, you know what you're getting. You're just getting really good basketball players.
Yeah, no, I like the Horford shout. Again, he's definitely not going to play tomorrow, and this is a matchup against the Bucks where he usually does get extended because he's like the primary defender on Giannis. So I don't hate that at low ownership, 4.9K. Again, no Porzingis, so I think he's a solid contrarian option. The issue is like I find it tough to kind of pick between the likes of like Tatum, White, Brown, even Drew. They all look pretty similar to me. So I don't have any really super strong takes. They're all like hovering around 10%. So like they're fine filler pieces for me, but I'm not going to go like out of my way to play one of them. And then Pritchard's getting very low ownership. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind recently. But this team is close to fully healthy again outside of Porzingis. So I don't know if he's going to play like the mid 30s minutes he has been playing over the last 3 games. Not completely out of play, but again, he's getting sub 1% ownership. So and then like I don't think I'm going to mess with the backup bigs. I don't have a good feel on what's going to happen with like the likes of Cornette, Kada. You could even see like I don't know, maybe Xavier Tillman plays a little bit for defense. Like, I just don't have a good feel on that backup center rotation, so I'm just not going to mess with it.
Yeah, I don't have a great confidence in one. Does like just one of them get the minutes? Do they split them? Like, it's not something that I really want to dip my toe into. It really is just Tatum, Brown, White, Holiday, and then I think Horford is like sneaky in GPPs, but nothing too crazy. Man, it feels weird to have Milwaukee just look so wildly unappealing.
I know. I mean, this should be a good game, but it doesn't really stand out for DFS purposes.
I can't wait till we get to San Antonio so I could shut everybody up too.
Yeah, I see some Sohan chat.
First of all, he wasn't cheap yesterday. We can just start there. When we did the deeper dive yesterday, Jeremy Sohan was not cheap and also not projected to start the game at center anywhere. It's almost like that changed and made everything look different.
What we say now can obviously change. Like Sohan, again, if him starting at the center, once you knew that, you would have liked him a lot more. But like we didn't know that. Like it was pretty surprising. They had not started Sohan at the 5 once this year, so it's like impossible to predict.
Right. It's almost like the entire way we looked at it went away. Like as if he was 25% owned prior to that, and I was shitting all over him. I think he was 2% owned when we did the show. So 98% of the field was on my side. Of course I'm not going to take an L. I didn't take an L. The whole script of the San Antonio Spurs changed. He didn't just do that off the bench and I looked stupid. Then I'd take the L. Morons. Hate everybody. But I do want you guys to sign up at Stokastic using the link in the description of this video. It's very simple. You click that link. It takes you to a page that shows you a list of our partners. You click any one of them on the list that's legal to you on the pick'em side or the sports betting side. You're going to get a bonus when you sign up there. It's going to cost you $0 from us, and you're going to get a month of whichever core package you want. So I assume if you're watching this, NBA would be what you're looking for. You'll get a month of our NBA core package for free just by signing up and following the instructions based on whichever one of our partners you sign up with. The process is very easy. It's just a button. All of the instructions are written at the top of the page. Shouldn't be tough, guys. Shouldn't be tough. And you guys can sign up and get a month. You get behind the paywall, hop in Discord, projections, ownership. Not many better deals than totally free to you. So if you've ever been interested in coming in, come on in. The Indiana Pacers are 3.5-point favorites in Chicago, 247 total. Highest pace, highest total by a mile. This is 15 points ahead of the Lakers in Atlanta. That probably has something to do with the fact that the Pacers defense is terrible. The Chicago defense is terrible. Both of these teams are in the top 10 in pace. And we're getting some ownership to the Pacers. 25-ish to Halliburton on DraftKings, north of 30 on FanDuel. Siakam, Mathurin, Turner, and Toppin are all between 15 and 20. McConnell is 30. Mathurin is 58 on FanDuel, where he's 6K. You're getting a bunch of ownership to McConnell there as well. I've got a lot of the Indiana Pacers right now. They are currently my third most owned team. Do you have a priority from the Pacers?
Yeah, so the Nembhard news is pretty important. I think he will play. He missed last game just due to rest purposes. His rotations have been weird too because he's only played the first half. If he gets rolled out though, like Halliburton would look a little bit better because the assist numbers go up a bit with Halliburton when Nembhard is not in the court. But yeah, as far as like a favorite player on the Pacers go, it's probably Halliburton at 8.3. I think the ownership on TJ McConnell is a little bit high right now at over 30%. The minutes have ticked up for him, but if Nembhard is in, and let's just say Nembhard plays the second half, like I think those minutes are definitely going to go down for McConnell. So
yeah,
that one feels a little bit high right now, especially if Nembhard is in. But yeah, Halliburton has been playing better of late. Assist numbers have been solid. Usage has been decent. So love targeting players against the Bulls too. Like this is one of my favorite teams to target players against. So yeah, Halliburton looks good. The minutes on Obi Toppin have ticked up a little bit too. Would feel a little bit more comfortable with his minutes if Nembhard doesn't play too. 20 plus in 3 of the last 4. So 3.6K makes him firmly in play for value. The mid-range options, Turner, Mathurin, Siakam, all in the mid-teens in ownership. No real super strong takes there, but I think all those guys are viable options. Don't think I'm going to get to the likes of like Jarris Walker. And then Nembhard himself is completely unowned right now. He's only played the first half, as I mentioned, in back-to-back games. But like, what happens if he plays the second half here? What happens if he plays like a normal rotation and plays like 30 minutes? Like, I think that's a little bit interesting. So keep an eye on that news because it would make some other value plays look a little bit better if he gets rolled out. But if he gets rolled in, I think he's like an interesting play himself because one of these days he's going to play the second half.
It's going to happen eventually, and you want to be early to that, not late to it. I completely agree there. Do you think he's playing? Do they play tomorrow?
I think he is playing, yeah, because the game that he missed was the second night of a back-to-back. So I think and they said it was injury management that game, so I'm pretty sure he's going to play.
They don't play tomorrow. So if they play tomorrow, I could then it's okay. They're going to play him in one of them. So I got a bunch of McConnell right now. If Nembhard gets ruled in, I'll probably walk McConnell back another minute. Once I feel a little bit more confident, that'll probably soften him a little bit there. The most I have of anybody, though, is Tyrese Halliburton. And if you guys have been watching this show since the end of October, you'll know I'm never on the right side of this guy. When I jam him, he'll go for one of those classic 5 points, 4 assists, 2 rebound games. And you're just like, how the hell did this guy get an all-NBA nod? And then the day that I fade him, he goes out there and he looks like he used to look. So right now he's in 34% of my stuff. Take that with the tiniest grain of salt because I am incredibly nervous about it. But I mean, I've got north of 10 on Siakam, Mathurin, Turner, Toppin. I hate getting to Toppin, but if they're not playing Moses Brown anymore, those minutes aren't going anywhere.
Right. So again, if the minutes are there for Toppin, he definitely stands out as a good value. Like if he plays 20, if you told me for sure he's playing 20 minutes, he's going to stand out as one of the better values in the slate.
Lots to like here for the Indiana Pacers. Like I mentioned, they are the third most owned team for today. Now, Chicago, boy, oh boy, did they get weird today. We had no idea what their injury report was going to look like after yesterday. I kind of expected Giddey to sit today after yesterday. Turns out, probable. Zach LaVine, probable. But the real problem here is Q-Tag Lonzo Ball, Q-Tag Buzelis, and Q-Tag Kobe White. Now, these guys are basically not getting any real ownership. You get like Vooch and Jalen Smith around 10. Some of there's a small trickle here, but nobody is overwhelmingly owned. That could change pretty dramatically if like White, Buzelis, and Ball don't play. Hard for me to dig in here. Does anything stand out to you for Chicago, or like do you have a particular scenario that's going to lead you to somebody?
Yeah, so right now, assuming everyone is in, there's definitely not a priority for me, but I think like all the main guys would be viable. Like no one's really getting above 10% with the likes of like Vooch and Io and LaVine and Kobe White. So those guys would all be in play for me for tournaments. If you do start getting some guys ruled out, then these guys are going to look a little bit better. Lonzo, I think he's going to play. They have him listed as questionable, which is a little bit surprising because they ruled him out due to injury management. Or they just said rest last game. So I'm a little bit surprised he's on the injury report as questionable. But yeah, last game with Kobe White out, it was basically you got like point Io DeSumo. The minutes were down on Giddey, which is pretty surprising with two guys out. Like with Kobe White and Lonzo out, I thought the minutes would be way more secure for Giddey. They weren't. You saw Io DeSumo made 66 passes and had 15 potential assists. He had a triple-double. Zach LaVine almost had a triple-double as well. So just wanted to mention that. But yeah, if everyone's in, there's definitely no standouts. If you get a couple of those guards get ruled out, then like Io's going to look better and, LaVine's going to look better. Vooch has been shooting the ball really well. He's coming around 10%. He's fine for tournaments. THT could even be playable if a few of those guys get ruled out. He's not a great real life player, but he's pretty good point per minute. And if he plays like 20 minutes, he could be in play too. So injury report's gonna definitely matter here for what I want to do with the Bulls. But if everyone's in, yeah, there's no one that I'm gonna go out of my way to play.
Yeah, those injuries are going to carry a lot of weight. Like if White's gone again, that's important. If Buzelis, because of his nose, has to sit for this one, you never know what the status of Lonzo is going to be. Like Chicago could look wildly different if they all get chopped, because this is a spot that's not really pulling any ownership, and they certainly can get a lot more. If you start Julian Phillips starts again, if these guys are out, you're obviously bumping DeSumo and you're bumping rates for some of these guys. But if they're all in, it's really kind of unappealing to try to like parse through all these guys. Ugh. I don't like it. My guess is that White is going to play today. Although, let me point this out. I have the pace, or the line is Pacers favored by 3.5. I actually have it at 1.5. But that's kind of leading me to think that we might not be getting Kobe White here.
Yeah, because I don't think anyone else would really move the line. So, yeah.
Maybe I'm leaning White out now. We'll see. It'll be one to pay attention to. Either bet the Pacers because you think he's in, or rather, either bet Chicago and take the points because you think he's in, or bet the Pacers. We're getting to the good one here. Well, one side of the good one. Sacramento Kings, 6.5-point favorites in San Antonio, 228 total. Should we pour one out for Keon Ellis? Because that dude appears to be dunzo with the Sacramento Kings at this point.
It doesn't make sense because like he fits perfectly for what this team needs. Like they need a kind of a 3-and-D guy, and it's just shocking to me that he's not playing.
I can't wrap my head around it in any way. Nothing could make less sense to me. 14% ownership to Sabonis. Call Sabonis 10 to 15 on DraftKings and FanDuel. DeRozan's 10 on both sites. Nobody else is getting anything resembling ownership. I got to Sabonis and DeRozan. Got a couple shares of Fox, a couple shares of Monk. Nothing crazy. As far as I'm concerned, those 5 guys are basically the same guy. You just choose one and hope it's their day today, because they're all the same. Outside of Murray, all 4 of these guys are basically the same dude.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're really not playing the bench. Like they ran another 8-man rotation. Herter's the guy playing the most off the bench, but his price is, you can't go to him at 5.2. And so like the fact that they're running that type of rotation does make these guys in play. I think the guy that I prefer here would probably be a 7K Malik Monk. Now the price point might scare some people, but he has a different role now, right? Like he's starting. He only played 32 minutes last game, but he was in some foul trouble. The games before that, 35 and 37. So like I'm expecting mid to high 30s minutes here from Malik Monk. In the 3 games that he has started, he's leading the team potential assists, 55 passes made, 12.7 potential assists per game. So that boosts his floor a bit. On the season, he's averaging about 16 points per game, but that was when he was playing like 27 minutes a game or so. Now he's playing like 36, 37 minutes. So I think Malik Monk is still a solid option there, coming in around 5%. And then like Fox, DeRozan, Sabonis, all viable to me. This is a pretty good matchup against the Spurs. Again, no Wemby on the opposite side, so no issues with any of those other guys. I don't think I'm going to get to Keegan Murray. That feels a little bit too pricey. And then, I think it's basically impossible to get to the bench guys. So it's for me, it's Sabonis, DeRozan, Monk, Fox. And looking at ownership, I think Monk's probably the guy I like the best.
Here's the thing I'm going to keep my eye on for Malik Monk as we go forward. 3 starts so far this season. 17.5% usage rate for Malik Monk. That just stands out to me for the obvious reason of, well, if you're going to not use Malik Monk as Malik Monk, shouldn't you make that Keon Ellis?
Like it makes all the sense to keep Malik Monk off the bench and start Keon Ellis because this team needs defense. Like it's dumb. It's really dumb.
It's all to make sure that Malik Monk plays like 4 extra minutes a day, I guess. This feels like they are having to pay off a contract promise. That he was just like, yo, I'll resign. You guys just got to start me. And eventually they were like, all right, fine, we'll start you. And he kept bitching. I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, if you have Malik Monk, you don't want him to have a 17.5% usage rate. That's like that you're not deploying him the way that you are. Why would you not want him to have a higher usage rate? But you're never going to get that if you're playing on the court with Fox, Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, he the role that he had coming off the bench made all the sense. So I disagree with him starting as far as winning games for this team, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Now we get to the Spurs, heavily owned here today. No Trey Jones, no Devin Vassell, Victor Wembanyama, doubtful. 4 guys are getting ownership, and it's the same basically across both sites. Sohan is 40 on both sites, and kudos to DraftKings once again, because now he's power forward only. So, what are we doing? Definitely not center? No? Cool.
Yeah, they had him at center like when he wasn't playing, and then he actually started a game at center, and they gave him power forward eligibility.
It's fantastic. So 40% ownership to Sohan on both sites. Castle's 40 on DraftKings, 30 on FanDuel. Chris Paul is 15 on DraftKings, 25 on FanDuel. And then Keldon Johnson is just shy of 40 on both sites. I have 40 of Sohan, 40 of Castle, 40 of Keldon Johnson. Got about 15 of Chris Paul. Let's just break these guys down one by one. How are you feeling about Sohan here? Let's just assume he's the starting center today and they don't roll the dice again and do something weird.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because do you think they start Zach Collins here? I think that's definitely possible. So I don't know. I want the starting lineup's going to play a big role in what I do for this team.
I mean, I expected them to start Zach Collins yesterday, and that ended up being aggressively incorrect. Sohan ended up -6 for the game. A lot of that happened third quarter. The positive came in, -9 in that first rotation. I mean, I think he's fine to start against Sabonis, I guess, in relationship to Collins. Yeah, I mean, the starting lineup matters. Assuming Sohan starts today, and it's the same starting lineup that we got yesterday, he looks awesome because he's power forward eligible.
Yeah, if he starts at the 5, I think he's my favorite option on the Spurs. It's a relatively small sample size. Both Wembayama and Vassell off the court this year. He is leading the team in usage, 26.4% usage rate. In that most recent game where he started at the center, 17 rebound chances, not a big surprise. Obviously, the rebound numbers are going to go up if he starts at the 5. So, and he's got power forward eligibility. So he's getting ownership. But yeah, if he starts at the 5, I totally agree with it. Castle and Keldon getting a lot of love too. I think both really solid values. 4.8K for Castle, 4.5K for Keldon Johnson. On the year with Wembyama and Vassell off the court. Castle's about a 0.9 guy. Keldon's about a 1.0 guy. So those guys stand out as pretty good point per dollar values. I do find it a little bit interesting, though, that like Champagny is getting very low ownership. So he's coming in around 5%, whereas Castle and Keldon are both coming in around 40%. Champagny's also about a 0.9 point per minute guy with those two off the court. So I think he's like a similar play to those two and getting way less ownership. So a little bit intrigued by Champagny in GPPs. Harrison Barnes also getting very little love. He's 4.1K. We just see the random, he's very like up and down. We see the random pop off Harrison Barnes games for a couple games and he goes back to normal old Harrison Barnes. But he's getting very low ownership too. So I think he's viable for that reason. If Zach Collins comes off the bench, I can't do it. But if Zach Collins starts, I actually think he'd be a pretty good play. So that's why I think, again, keep an eye on that starting lineup. It's going to be pretty important. And then the last guy to mention here is Chris Paul, coming around 15% at 6.2K. Kind of just indifferent on that. Don't really have any super strong takes. You landed him fine, but I'm not going to go out of my way to play him either.
I like the Champagny call. I'm not shocked that his ownership is light. Like I've got, Castle for a couple extra minutes, slightly higher projection. You mentioned Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson gets that MPE, which I think is carrying him a little bit more and definitely a better per minute guy. But that does make me think like, oh man, is he just slipping through the cracks here? Is there a way to soften ownership on some other guys and take a shot on someone like Champagny? Especially because, no Vassell, that's another guy that likes to shoot. Like not that like Champagny is not that guy, but they are missing their two probably best offensive players in Vassell and Wemby here.
Yeah, I would say so.
At least we don't have to like crazy worry about Bassey. He's up to 4K now, so that doesn't have to be like this sneaky, oh, he's 3K, what happens if he plays type situation.
Yeah, like I think, yeah, if Zach Collins doesn't start at the 5, like Bassey's unplayable. If Collins starts, then Bassey's at least in play.
Yeah. Is he though? If Collins starts, do you think then someone else is not starting other than Sochan?
I think Sochan would stay in the starting lineup. I think it would probably be maybe Harrison Barnes move to the bench. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I wouldn't be super confident with who would move to the bench, but I don't think they're going to take Sochan out of the starting lineup. So it would probably have to be either Barnes or Champagny, or I guess Castle maybe, but yeah.
I think he's locked in now permanently.
You think so? Yeah.
Defensively, he's just been so good. I'd be surprised if they didn't reward him with maintaining that. Like, you don't have a future in Julian Champagny that you need to like coax that ego, whereas Castle's a little bit different there. Yeah, the starting lineup matters because if, let's just say, for example, they change it up and they do start Zach Collins today, whether or not Sochan starts lets you know whether or not Charles Bassey becomes available. Because if Sochan starts, then you feel like Bassey's the backup. If Sochan doesn't start, then you don't really know if they're just going to go to Sochan backup 4, backup 5 weird situations.
Right.
Then then it gets a little murkier. So that would be something I'm paying attention to. I assume they're going the same starting lineup, but who knows what whoever the hell the coach for the Spurs is right now is doing. I don't remember who the coach is, but
I don't
not Pop. Somebody yesterday was just like, oh, I don't want to get popped. I was like, well, he hasn't been the coach for
the team.
Weeks. So, oh man. I kind of just want to say that they're going to do something stupid here, but I don't have any trust in it. So let's keep this moving. We don't have too much to talk about for a couple of these spots. We had some other places that we definitely needed to dig into. Minnesota Timberwolves, 1-point favorites in Golden State, 219 total. Minnesota does nothing different ever. Although Josh Minot did play first half minutes in their last game, but 10% ownership to Randall on the DraftKings side. Everybody else is like 6. I don't think anybody stands out. And I have every single one of their 8 guys in at least one lineup.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Like, there's definitely no one that stands out looking at the salaries. If you feel good about one of the rotation players, go for it. But yeah, for me, like, there's no standouts here. Conley's minutes have been solid in competitive games, but his price has come up a bit. Rudy Gobert is 6.6. Like, it's fine. He's playing a good amount of minutes, but he's really hasn't been doing much outside of rebounding. With the likes of like DiVincenzo and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, they're playable in tournaments. One of those guys could have a good game, but I just don't have a ton of confidence there. Naz Reid feels priced right. McDaniels feels a bit overpriced. There's nothing for me to really that stands out for this team.
No, like, I don't mind getting anyone. Basically, the only guy that I really don't ever want is McDaniels, but like, there are situations where he just goes out there and plays like 33 minutes, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I guess he would have been fine. But I just have shares of everybody, but no single priority from this team. Definitely no priority from the Golden State Warriors. Draymond probable, Steph probable, Peyton probable, Wiggins questionable. That could open up a little bit. These guys are 9% owned total. I only got 2 shares of Kuminga and nothing else. Obviously, if you want to get to Steph, that's fine. He's 9,700. We've named quite a few point guards that are also unowned at lower prices, if that's more interesting, which it probably should be against a team like Minnesota. Golden State looks terrible. I don't really have anything to say about them.
Yeah, assuming it's, again, keep an eye on the Andrew Wiggins news, but even if he gets ruled out, I don't really think that's going to change a ton. If Kevon Looney starts, I think he's a little bit interesting. 4.2K, started the 5 last couple of games. Steve Kerr has said like he wants to play Looney a little bit more. So if Looney gets a start, I think he'd probably be the one guy I would consider for Golden State. But if he doesn't start, I think it's really hard to get to anyone. Kuminga has had, a couple of good games recently, but Draymond was out in those games. Draymond is back. So like the minutes in Kuminga are definitely not secure. We know when this team is fully healthy, Kerr is playing like 11, 12, sometimes even 13 guys. So just monitor the starting lineup. If Looney starts, I think he would probably be the guy I like the best.
They are very easy to talk about right now. But yeah, you need the Wiggins news, and we might not get that till after 8 o'clock, at which point it's really not going to be all that valuable at that point. Not a ton of swaps left. Final game, Utah Jazz, 2.5 point dogs in Portland, 226 total. Hit that like button if you haven't done it yet before we get to live before lock. Around 15% ownership coming into Markkanen, 20 to Kessler, 10 to Keontae George, and then everybody else is in single digits. I'm happy to get to Kessler. He plays like 32 minutes a night. It's certainly not a bad spot against DeAndre Ayton and the Portland Trailblazers. So I've got 28% of Kessler. I got to 24% of Markkanen. This feels like a game where he could look pretty damn good when they're actually playing somebody else that's on their level. And then, Keontae George, Sexton, Collins, I'll be right around the field for those guys. I kind of like the Utah side.
Yeah, honestly, this is probably one of my favorite teams to target in tournaments. No one really getting a ton of love. I think the guy I like the best here would be a sub 10% owned John Collins, only 7.2K. The minutes have been, ticking up on some of these main guys. I don't know if you noticed in the most recent game, they got blown out by the Thunder, and the starters actually came back in and closed that game. So just wanted to note that. I don't think his game's going to blow out, but they, for some reason, came back in like a 30-point blowout against the Thunder. But yeah, I'm pretty high on John Collins here. On the season, he's a 1.22 fantasy point per minute player. So I think he's going overlooked right now. And the other front court guys I like too. Walker Kessler at 6.3K. His minutes have quietly ticked up. He's getting some ownership, but I think he should be. Lauri Markkanen at 7K in competitive games. We've seen high 30s minutes from him a few times, like 38 there against the Lakers. That's good to see. And then even the guards I think are fine here with Sexton and Keontae George. George around 10%, Sexton around 5%. So all 5 starters I like. I think Collins is the guy I like the best. I don't really feel comfortable in anything off the bench with the likes of like Sensabaugh and Johnny Juzang and Collier and guys like that. But any of the starters I think look pretty good here. But yeah, I think Collins factoring in ownership is the guy I like the best.
Collins is the weirdest dude on the slate for me. So we spent like 10 minutes in our projections call this afternoon looking at John Collins. His points prop today is oddly low. It's 16.5 juice to the over. Now, his role hasn't changed. Like, everything's been pretty normal for Utah. So I took a look at all of his rates. Nothing was off or weird or accidentally keyed. I have him projected for 19 real points. I'm miles ahead of this market, and I have no idea how to bring that down realistically because it's not a rates thing. I don't know what I'm seeing here, But I have this like twinge in my head that for some reason he's just not going to, he's like earmarked for like 28 minutes today. And I don't know why, because there's no other way for me to bring that down. I don't want to say that I'm matching his season rates, but like I'm in and around the ballpark of what John Collins has been. And I haven't had a day yet where I just was like, oh, I guess I have John Collins 3 points ahead of his points prop. So I agree. Like I have John Collins projected way better than it seems. And I'm nervous. Either the market's super wrong or I'm super wrong.
Well,
but there's a gap.
I hope the market's wrong because I'm glad you haven't projected for 19 because I bet is over points plus rebounds earlier in the day. So
I like it.
Yeah, it just felt like he was going a little bit undervalued at the prop market too.
Then on the Portland side, we are still waiting on the news for Scoot Henderson, who feels like he's been questionable for 3 weeks. 38% ownership to DeAndre Ayton on FanDuel. And then basically like Grant, Simons, Sharp are all like in that 10% range on both sites. Kamara's getting a little bit more love on FanDuel as well, around 14%. I don't think anybody like immediately jumps off the page here for Portland. Most I got of anybody was Sharp. But kind of like Utah, I'm okay with getting any one of Grant, Ayton, Simons, or Sharp.
Yeah, another team I like for tournaments too. I think they're going a little bit overlooked. We've seen in competitive games, like they get blown out a lot, but in competitive games, we have seen pretty big minutes for a lot of these main guys. Like DeAndre Ayton 3 games ago played 41 minutes against the Kings. We've seen Simons and Sharp play high 30s minutes. Jeremy Grant's played 37 and 35 over the last couple games. That game against the Clippers was a blowout too, where he played 35 minutes. So those 4 specifically, Sharp, Simons, Ayton, Grant, I think are all pretty good plays. They're all coming in around 10%. So I like all 4. And then the only other thing to mention here is the status of Scoot Henderson, because if he gets rolled out, I do think Delano Banton would be in play. The last 3 games that Scoot has missed, Banton has played 23, 25, and 21 minutes. So he would be a viable value play if Scoot gets rolled out. If Scoot gets rolled in, though, I don't think we can go there.
DK, tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, DK__DFS, or on YouTube, DK DFS. I do DFS and prop content.
There we go, everybody. Deeper dive in the books. And you know what that means? It's Friday. We have no transition around these parts. It's just live before lock right now. Greg, Eric, come on in. All right, I'll do it. Nope, I removed Greg.
No. All right, we pressed the button at the exact same time. What's happening, guys?
What's up, boys?
Not too much. Just getting ready for the slate here, running a final run of Sims that is probably going to have to be rerun, 8 to 9 times over the course of the show. But other than that, yeah, Eric and I are going to be going through the slate here. We got a bunch of players who are questionable on the injury report. This should be a good playback show for Josh and I too, because I assume there's going to be news like LeBron James. We're probably not going to We're probably not going to get an update on him until post lock. So. Josh and I will be back in 57 minutes from now. We'll be over on playback, which I actually have to join right now.
Danny and I are going to go bet stuff after this show. So we'll see you guys in tails. Hopefully you guys are staying apprised of everything there. And then following Greg's portfolio EV thread, Josh's portfolio EV thread, only dogs. I mean, come on now. This is beautiful stuff. Such an original concept and in no way a knockoff of anybody's name.
All right, so let's get it started here. DK, have a good weekend. Josh, I'll see you back here in 57 minutes.
Yep, have a good one, guys. See ya.
All right, Eric. So first things first. I got to ask first to the audience, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys have not done it already, I assume you did it over the course of the deep dive. But if you haven't, do it now because you got to. And I'm sure that Chris Williams is going to leave a super chat and tell you guys that you're in big trouble if you didn't do it. So go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Of all the players that are on the injury report tonight, Eric, which there's still a bunch of them, I'll actually read them all off for people who may not be apprised of all the latest injury report. But I just talked about it before. LeBron's the big one. He's questionable tonight. Kobe White is questionable. You got Andrew Wiggins questionable. Scoot Henderson's questionable. Andre Drummond is questionable. Jonathan Isaac is questionable. Lonzo Ball questionable. Andrew Nembhard questionable. Taurean Prince questionable. And then we also have, was there one other? All right. Buzelis is also questionable. LeBron's obviously going to be a big one, and we are going to get hit. Maybe we'll get it over the course of live before lock. At the very least, we're going to be getting it during the post-lock show. Do you have a lean whether LeBron is going to sit or play tonight?
he said he wanted to play every game this season. He said he was going to be in for 82 games, and that was what he was going for. I feel as though this is kind of them saying, you know what, things have really been going south, and we need to make some kind of a shakeup. We need to give some other guys some run, potentially try to sneak one in a spot where, you know, we give LeBron a night off, try to take off some of the workload. I mean, the guy's, he's immortal. I mean, the guy's insane what he's done in his NBA career and avoiding major injuries at it too. I mean, LeBron James is getting up there in years and it doesn't feel like it, but all of that being said, I would be kind of surprised if he sat today.
It's so hard to know because I do agree with you that he wants to play, which of course all the players want to play more often than not. At the same time too, he's been terrible as of late. For fantasy, he hasn't been that bad because he's got the peripheral stats and he actually scored decently well last game. But I mean, this is the worst basketball he's played in quite some time. I tend to think he's probably just not totally healthy. And then also his age probably plays a factor in that as well. So I think this really might be a thing where they step in and just be like, hey, I think you need a day off. It's for the best of the team. So I really don't know. I think it's a true 50-50.
Yeah, I would probably say it's like 55 he plays purely because LeBron has been like GM at times. He's been a guy who got to go pick out his goods at the grocery store, multiple occasions on multiple teams, Cleveland, Miami, obviously here in LA too. But yeah, maybe this is them just coming in and saying, you know what, we understand you want to play every single game. That's important to you, but it's also important that we win. You played 29 minutes. He had his first game of like being pretty efficient, but like turnovers have started to be a problem for him as well. 6 and 5 the last 2 in 60 minutes played. LeBron taking a night off. I mean, it feels like they're playing catch up in every game here lately. This would be a spot where you're trying to beat Atlanta, but if you play LeBron here for 38 minutes and you don't win, you feel like you did your team a disservice. I pointed this out too going into this week. They've had a crazy, like little bit of a road schedule there. That's kind of why I was on Minnesota in their game previous to this, because I thought there was a really good chance that they rested LeBron or Anthony Davis, at least in one of these spots. And it hasn't come to fruition yet. And then they're going to come back out to the West Coast. They play like one game smack dab at home in the middle of everything and then go back out on the road again. It's a terrible schedule for the Lakers here the last couple of weeks. And I think that might be playing into it as well. But all things considered, there's not a ton that we're going to be jamming here again from Orlando's side. I still think he's closer to playing than not.
Are you ready for a super chat? You're going to like this super chat. I guarantee it.
Okay.
From 1-2, despite his effeminate manner, so a little bit of a backhanded compliment, but despite his effeminate mannerisms, Eric is the man. GOAT nuke of the night. Thanks. Yes. So last night, Ayo Dosunmu. Also, I think this is unprecedented. Obviously, yours was much better than mine, Eric. But both of our nuke of the nights are triple doubles last night. There's no way that's happened before, has it?
No, there's no way that that's happened unless it's been like a Luka Jokic where we were just jamming in the top end guys. But I thought Luka was a great play. Obviously didn't end up playing that fourth quarter, but I was pretty heavy on Dallas 11.5. Thought that was good. And then, yeah, you can put my nails. You can do the Caleb Williams thing, Mr. Sports Wiz. I'm just fine with it. Let's go, Eric. I feel good about it. My job is to try to help you make money. It's not to always be your favorite personality in the entire world, but I try to be both. But at the same time, I'm okay with just trying to help you make money. And Ayo Dosunmu, there won't be another nuke of the night where we 13x a 5,300 salary goes for 67 and change, and you're 3x the field. So thank you, Ayo Dosunmu. Now let's all bet Kobe White today, this time around. I'm not partial to things, but if Kobe White ends up playing, his 3+3s, 4+3s are way too low at FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening there with Kobe White being questionable. But yeah, big shout out to Eric. Lots of people in the chat giving you all kinds of props. I saw people tweeting at me and saying, hey, make sure Eric gets his due today, which also people could hit up Eric. He's at Eric Lindquist. You guys could go and find him and tell him all the nice things. I don't have to be the middleman to give Eric compliments, which I don't mind. I don't mind telling Eric every once in a while that he's handsome, that he's got nice eyes, that he's a nice nuke of the night. I don't have an issue with it. You guys could also tell Eric that directly. But yeah, shout out to Eric for Ayo Dosunmu. And yeah, no other super chats that have come in about that, but lots of just general comments in the chat about how good Ayo was last night. So definitely a very, very good call by Eric. Also, more the reason to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you guys want to be signing up for any of the tools we have here at Stokastic.com, there's a link for that down below in the YouTube description box. But also, don't forget, Then we've got our link join offer, which if you guys sign up at any of these sites for the first time, it has to be through our link below. That's for tracking purposes. So we got Sportsbooks in here. We have also got Pick'em sites. So you might be in a state that doesn't have Sportsbooks, but you got Pick'em. You might be in a state that doesn't have Pick'em, but you got Sportsbooks. We've got a wide variety of options here. For each one of these that you guys sign up for, you get 1 free month of a core package to the sport of your choosing. So if you want to sign up for NBA, you could do that. If you want to sign up for NFL, you can do that. If you sign up for 2 of these, you could stack them. You get multiple free months of the same sport, or you could go, hey, I want 2 free months of NBA, free month of NFL. The world is your oyster. Just sign up for any of those books down below. And then, of course, if you guys just want to sign up through the site, you could also do that and pay the regular subscription subscription price through any of the links that we have down below, because we got links to just bring you back to the sign up page on the site as well. So Eric, while we were talking there, we got news. LeBron expected to play. So there we go. That became much less interesting.
Yeah, less interesting, but I kind of like the slate better this way. If I'm being honest, I didn't want early news like this. I want something weird from San Antonio. That's what I'm hoping for. But I don't know. I doubt we get any kind of like crazy, ridiculous news from here on out. I mean, I think we're going to be playing this close to straight up. Kobe White being out, Lonzo Ball being out, Buzelis being out. I think that would change a lot of what we're looking at. Maybe that's what I'm cheering for, is maybe all 3 of them to just be out, or all 3 to be in and just playing this straight up. Because Wiggins, I think that's probably our biggest piece of news that we're waiting on now, right?
I mean, it's kind of up for debate what we're going to consider the biggest. Did you said Wiggins?
Yeah, because I mean, if all 3 of the Bulls are out, sweet, but like the prices came up a little bit on some of the Chicago guys. It's an awesome spot against Indy, and the pace. I mean, we have a 247.5 total that just won't move. It is just something I've been staring at the face, thinking I want to short it. But if you get all 3 in, or if Kobe White, again, the prices came up a little bit here, I would assume it will be crazy popular, and we'll have to have that discussion. But like Andrew Wiggins, I think he would change a lot, because like you're going to get some piece of value that jumps into that starting unit that's unexpected, whether it's Kyle Anderson, Lindy Waters. We could go back to those Waters, I suppose, but I wouldn't be running to the window to go play him, I suppose. So it's kind of a messy deal with some of the other injury pieces. Like Milwaukee, if Taurean Prince ends up out, what do we really want to go jam there, unless like somehow Bobby Portis, we're all kind of gun shy after that Miami outing. Like what are we looking to jam from that? Pretty much nothing. Like it's just kind of a weird slate in terms of the injury news left.
Yeah, to me, it's still the Bulls, just because you have, like you mentioned, it's 3 guys, and then Kobe White also plays a really big role for the Chicago Bulls. So it's like, what happens here for the Bulls if White and/or then Ball and Buzelis are out? Then THT, he comes back into the fold. So to me, the Bulls news is still the biggest. It's not to say that Wiggins doesn't matter, but really just want to show people that there is still news that we're waiting on that's going to be relevant for tonight's slate. Another super chat that we have in here. This one is from Melissa. Melissa Harvey says, Lindy, he may be a dweeb, but he's our dweeb.
I felt that one. I felt that one here. That was very heartfelt. Melissa, she's been around forever since I know since I've been here.
Don't make fun of her for being old.
What? No, I didn't. It's just since
I've been around forever.
Since I've been alive, dipshit. No.
Oh my God, that's another backhanded compliment. The same way that 1-2 left you a backhanded compliment, that's a backhanded compliment to Melissa. Oh, you've been around for forever. You've seen the ropes. You got experience in life.
Greg,
that's code for old.
Greg, back to the basketball. I'm going to keep us on track today.
That is just not very nice by you.
Thank you,
Eric.
Melissa. Thank you.
Not nice at all. So anyway, yeah. So those are definitely the 2 biggest pieces of injury news: Golden State Warriors, Chicago Bulls. And if you guys are in our Discord channel, if you got any questions for us, hit us up over the course of the show, and we will definitely be hitting on any questions that you have for us. Let's go ahead and look at some of the ownership projections, because it looks like we're not going to have too much that's going to change, at least over the course of the next few minutes. Now we got the LeBron news. So if we look right now at the highest owned players on the entire slate, we'll do this for DraftKings, we'll do it for FanDuel as well, Eric. Here is the chalk of the chalk over on DK. And it's Spurs guys again that are showing up on DraftKings. So here are the 4 most rostered players, all of them showing up in over 30% of lineups. And actually all these guys at least close to 40+% as well. But Jonathan Isaac was just ruled out. So we got that piece of news. Let's talk about the injury reports. Then we'll talk about any potential significance Jonathan Isaac being out might have. But D'Angelo Russell pulling 53% ownership. Then you got Keldon Johnson at 41%, Castle at 40%, Sokan also at 40%, technically 39.9 and 39.8. But Eric, of these players, do you think any of them doesn't warrant being chalk? Ultimately, the Spurs guys ended up working out last night, but it looked dicey for the first half at least, where the rotation was really spread out. What do you make of the chalk players from the Spurs for tonight's slate?
They look good. There's not a lot I can say. I mean, I think Keldon Johnson is probably the guy that it makes me feel a little bit queasy because everybody's going to the guy off the bench where the minutes are volatile and can be volatile based on how he's playing to some extent. But with no Trey Jones out there, no Devin Vassell here on the back-to-back, I got to think that this is like a more secure minutes allotment for him. I mean, he played 24 against Phoenix, played 28 and was just, I mean, he had it going against Chicago. He looked really good. He was kind of the bright spot of a game that I thought the Chicago Bulls dominated. I would assume they dominated for sure. But I look at Jeremy Sohan being at 6,100 on a back-to-back coming off of, a thumb injury. Like, if it were a lower body injury, I'd probably look at that and say, oh, yeah, 6,100. They might limit his minutes here on the back-to-back. But he played 36 minutes. He looked great. He might have actually been the second best player on the Spurs yesterday. I think he looks good. It's hard to poke holes in any of the chalk. I think really what it comes down to is like, do you want to be holding hands with 40% of the field with 3 separate guys in all of your lineups? For me, that's where I feel like the Sims tool does enough where it can parse through the garbage, like the kind of lineups that I'll have that I just don't want to have all 3 together. And it'll find some of those lower owned pieces. It'll find a couple of pieces here and there that we can really go towards, but I can't poke holes in anything on San Antonio. Can you?
Oh boy. So by the way, we just got the Bulls guys. So they're all in. Bruzelis is in, Lonzo's in, Kobe White is in. Would have liked there to be a little bit more value that opened up, but not ending up being the case there.
Like, that's where I think, again, this San Antonio value is going to be very, very, very popular. And it's one of those days where if you have the Sims tool, you're playing ahead of the field as is. Like, I think I've changed my mind on it a little bit where before it's like, oh, now we're going to be so thin. We don't have value. I can't get to Anthony Davis. I can't get to Jason Tatum at 10K. Like, they're just luxury items. But at the same time, you have the tool that can parse through which lineups are good with the value and which lineups are bad playing all 3 pieces of those values. So like, I think we're at a little bit of an advantage still.
Yeah. And I mean, if I look at my current exposures right now, I'm not that much different than the field on the chalk. I'm getting to a comparable amount of D'Lo, Castle, Keldon Johnson, and Jeremy Sokan as field. But to your point, I feel like the lineups I have, because I got like 40-ish% of all those guys right now, I'm getting the best possible lineups I can with those guys. None of these guys are ones where it's like, oh, I have to have this guy in all of my lineups, which yesterday, if Zach Collins was starting, I thought he was going to be one of those guys. But then we get the super weird starting lineup for the Spurs yesterday. He doesn't end up starting. And then I lowered my exposure. I think I came away with 44 or 42% of them or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't view anybody as I need to have them in all my lineups today. But yeah, to your point, I do feel like I'm getting the best possible version of lineups with these players. But the chalk's all warranted. I don't look at any of these guys and be like, what is the field doing here? It all makes sense.
With you.
Some super chats here. We had one that came in, so we'll read that off, and then we'll talk about the impact of Jonathan Isaac being out. But Eddie Seja says, GKGPP must have players. Eric, okay, I feel like I'm not reading this correctly.
It's okay. Reading is hard. Sound it out.
Well, there's no DKGPP must have. Okay, I see what he's asking. For DKGPP, who are the must-have players? And then he adds, Eric looks like the guy from Happy Days. He needs a leather jacket. Thanks, guys. I had to put in the punctuation myself because it was all just one sentence there. So I was trying to figure out where the starts and breaks were. So there it is. Eric, you look like the guy from Happy Days. You need a leather jacket.
It's a good movie.
And then DKGPP must-have players. I don't view anybody as a must-have today.
kind of look at Stephon Castle as kind of a must-have. Keldon Johnson, kind of a must-have.
If somebody was building one lineup, though,
I'd
and they
want
didn't
both
have
of them.
Castle in it, but they had Keldon Johnson and Socan, I wouldn't say that's
That's fair. Yeah,
ridiculous.
I would say that there's guys that I really, really want to play. Like, I really want to play my boy TJ McConnell. I really want to play my nuke of the night. I really want to play Domantas Sabonis at low ownership on this back-to-back. I really want to do a number of different things. I think Dalton Connect, a player that's really popping in the Sims right now and in our tools, really low owned relative to where his ownership is at. Like, there's guys that I have preferences for, but yeah, I'm probably with you, especially D'Lo sub 5K failed. And I think that that's going to potentially keep things muted on D'Lo. If D'Lo had smashed, even at 5,400, he'd be like 70% owned. So like, I feel pretty comfortable saying that everybody's close to where they should be amongst these really, really popular pieces. And then I'm just kind of filling in tournament options around them. I think that that's kind of the way that I'm going about this slate. And again, that's where the Sims tools come in handy.
Are there any players here? I'll try to ask the question a different way. I know this isn't what Eddie was asking us, but who is a player who has really low ownership that you think should be higher owned by the field?
That's a great question.
It doesn't have to be a contrarian play you really like, just somebody you think the field is kind of missing out on with the current outlook of the slate.
Yeah, current outlook of the slate. I think Dalton Connect, probably the first guy that comes into mind. That was a complete blowout ridiculousness. The last two games have been kind of outlier games. They went on the road. They got their absolute faces kicked in against Miami and Minnesota. But this is Atlanta. Like, Miami, slow pace, meh. Minnesota, meh. They've scored 93 and 80 points there. But the goal was to get Dalton Connect in the starting unit and to infuse some shooting around LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Like, I got to think Dalton Connect sub 5K. If we had just written those last two games off and we had just walked in after, the OKC game where he was awesome, 6 for 13 from 3. Again, this road trip has not been good for them. They won a close one in Utah. He shot the ball like shit. He's made one of his last 12 threes. But Dalton Connect, he's a rookie. They go through these streaks. They're figuring it out. And he's still going to be starting for the Lakers if he's not starting, that's one thing. But like, he's 4,700 with shooting guard, small forward. That's pretty much all you can ask for, is getting like a shooting dependent guy like that at lower ownership than what we're projecting him to be optimal. Right now, Boom Bust Tools got him around 34%, 24% ownership. I think Dalton Connect, probably the guy that I think the field's sleeping on the most.
All right. By the way, we just had what could be some pretty significant news. Wemby is going to go through warm-ups, and the team is going to decide whether he's good enough to play or not for today. That is from Michael C. Wright, who is a writer and reporter for ESPN covering the San Antonio Spurs. So all of a sudden now, I think Wemby might be back in the mix, which if Wemby plays, it screws up all the value from the Spurs. I still think the most likely scenario is that Wemby sits and doesn't play. But boy, that would really throw a wrench to this entire slate, especially because that game doesn't lock until 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Well, there's ways to combat that. I like Domantas Sabonis for tournaments today. I don't think we see him get off to like the hot start he had yesterday. Malik Monk got in early foul trouble. He had 2 fouls. He stayed in that game to start, but I do think that it limited him to some extent. He played 32 minutes as opposed to 35, 37 the previous 2 days. He was in foul trouble that I think just kind of helped Domantas Sabonis realize a little bit more of an upside in terms of those minutes. And Trey Lyles being out. I mean, they had to dust off Isaac Jones, who played, 18, 16 minutes now. The last 2 is playing some of those backup center minutes. If you get a spot where Wemby ends up playing, I think there's going to be ways I can turn 9,300 Sabonis into some Wemby. Because, I mean, that would be like your tournament slam dunk, especially against Sacramento, especially coming off a back-to-back where, everybody else on San Antonio just got done playing. Like, I think there's ways I could get to Wemby where I wouldn't be panicked too much about it. And then you have Indy Chicago, which I think the game environment breeds some ownership for me. I think the fields got a little bit low on that one. I don't find a ton interesting about Utah, Portland, Minnesota, Golden State. Shane Sharp maybe a little bit under-owned in my first run of stuff. But as I look at the board, I got to think that there's going to be easy ways to turn Sabonis into Wemby where I shouldn't be too panicked.
Eat My Short says no more unconfirmed news drop after the Bud news from you guys. So That is, I'll tell you what happened there. It is my fault. The Wizards listed him inactive, and it's always tough, right? Because I have there's a number of different ways I could go about. I could either ignore the news and I cannot tell it to anybody. The truth is the Wizards listed him as inactive, and then he ended up playing anyway. But I could do a handful of things. I could either not tell you guys. I could either tell you the news I'm seeing. And the way I did present it as, here's what they're doing. Sometimes the game notes are not always 100% accurate. I could have sat on it and not said anything. I would have taken Bud Carrington out of my lineups anyway. But what I didn't want to happen, and I'll tell you why I did it this way, I did not think he was going to play based on them listing him as inactive. And what I didn't want to happen was for me to play a bunch of Butler and then to win a GPP with Butler. And people say, like, well, why did you play him? And then I have to say, well, I knew that Carrington was going to be inactive. So that's kind of why I just went about and said, hey, there's a chance that Carrington doesn't play. He was listed as inactive. And here's the situation we have right now. And it is, once again, it's a beat reporter for the San Antonio Spurs from ESPN who says that Wemby is going to warm up and see if he's able to play today. With that said, Wemby's listed as doubtful. I still think the most likely scenario is that he doesn't play, but he's not officially out or anything.
Nope, not officially out. Again, this is, we all, like, I think most people that watch this program who are attuned to DFS, attuned to betting, you get your news from a lot of the same places, but there are other places to get news. And when you see something that could be a potential edge, it would almost be a major disservice to not at least explain it to you. But I hope one thing that you understand is that no matter what we do on these shows, I am not trying to tell you to play the exact way that I am. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do with your money. That is your decision. But our job is to help you make money and to achieve long-term growth in DFS. Or, hey, maybe you're trying to just hit it and quit it. Like, that's just fine too when it comes to tournament play. Like, make the money, get out of the casino, do your thing. But at the end of the day, if there's a piece of news like that we think could be an edge, that we think could be a major advantage, he came in at 10%. Not enough people reacted to that news, Johnny Davis, that is specifically. And that would have been a unbelievable piece of 3K value if it had panned out that way. He bid up 13.5. I still had a profitable slate because of IO. I didn't win anything because I had 90% of Johnny Davis. But overall, these are the kind of things that if Greg and I are bringing them up to you, take it with a grain of salt if you want to. But like, we're just doing the best that we can every single day.
Yeah. And we'll see. I don't think that Wemby ends up playing. He is listed as doubtful on the injury report. Sometimes where it gets a little bit tricky with some of these scenarios where they say a guy's going to warm up and see if he could play, I always default to what it says on the injury report. And when they're doubtful, I still think, hey, he's doubtful. He's not all that likely to play. But there also isn't an injury report update that comes out right now. So you don't know if the status has actually changed until we see that next injury report. But let's go ahead and see what we have for the next super chats that have come in here. As AI is saying, viewers are discussing the Greg Ehrenberg show and debating whether they agree or disagree with his opinions. Some are upset about the quality of the show, while others are defending Greg. So there we go. That's what AI has to say about it. We have Nate saying, assuming he starts, thoughts on KJ Martin's value in single entry. So KJ Martin has started the last couple of games. He's not a very good fantasy producer. And then on top of that, his price point has gone up a little bit here. Here's what he's done the last couple of games that he started. He played 22 minutes. He played 29 minutes last time out. For tonight, we are not expecting him to start, though. Even if he goes, it's going to be hard to project him for more than like 16 or 17 fantasy points. So that is going to be a no for me today on KJ Martin. Yeah, KJ Martin's a little thin. Also, this is one of those premier slates. If producer Jacob could, my good friend producer Jacob, who I spend more time with than probably even my dog or wife at this point in time, does Lindy's stuff every single evening with me Sunday through Thursday, and then has to deal with me on Fridays too. What a time to be alive. But pull up Orlando and Philly ownership. I don't think there's anything from this game besides Jalen Suggs. Yeah, you heard me, Jalen Suggs, that I'm going to get to. I don't, like, I'm looking through my lineups. I don't have Franz Wagner. I don't have Paul George. I don't have Anthony Black. I don't have Mo Wagner, who has smashed a little bit. I think at 4,500 with Jonathan Isaac out, there might be some people who end up running to the window for that one. But even with Jonathan Isaac out,
they're just going to replace it with like a nothing amount of minutes from somebody else. I doubt it really helps any of the starters or any of the main pieces we're looking at. I think might shore up some minutes for Mo Wagner, and maybe I get to a tiny bit in my next run. But this is like a classic slate where you kind of just let the news roll out. You hope you get the Wemby news before Los Angeles and Atlanta, and then you kind of roll from there. But like, it hasn't treated us well to be shorting these first games of the night. But I think Orlando, Philly might be the most interested I am in just hitting complete eject on something.
Okay, a few more super chats, and then still we're going to have to double back on the situation with Jonathan Isaac being ruled out. But let's finish up these handful of super chats. Chris Williams, just a big thanks for all that you do. Not a massive win, but got first in the $5 showdown again last night. I will take multiple four-figure paydays in atoning over complaining. So there we have Chris Williams. Shout out to him. Another first place finish in a showdown last night. Chris, as always, big supporter of the channel. The Malukar gifted out 5 YouTube memberships. Malukar, we appreciate you as well. So Chris and Malukar, 2 of the staples of the YouTube as well as the playback chat. Josh and I'll be over in playback in 30 minutes. So thank you guys for supporting us here. And then Active 555 wants to know who are our top 2 players at each position on DraftKings. I'm still going to have to update everything for Jonathan Isaac. Well, actually, are you going to change anything with the Wemby situation? Or are we still going to assume he's out?
We have 29 minutes, and also I'm not terribly concerned with Orlando, Philly at the moment. Maybe I said Mo Wagner might end up being a guy that I get to a little bit of, but with Wendell Carter back, I mean, it's still muddied where you have those 3 guys, those 3 bigs. I think what happens is Tristan Da Silva walks into more minutes. He's 3,200, but he's not starting, so I can't really say that that's something I'm excited to do. Yeah, I doubt I get to very much, if anything, there. Maybe a share or 2 of Tristan Da Silva at 3,200 to get other guys into lineups. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like it'll be something that I do a ton for. So I'll have time to be able to react. Also, we weren't live on playback. I apologize to everybody. I just hit the go live button for everybody.
Oh,
it was never live at any point.
So if we are we just complete donks sitting here in playback thinking we're live and just talking to a blank screen?
Yeah, they went Yabusele and Andre Drummond together in the starting unit today. Nice job, Philly. Way to go. So that really
there we go. So we got the 76, which they did this the other day too. The reason it hasn't happened is because Drummond's been out since then. But yeah, we've got Maxi Oubre, Paul George, Yabusele, Drummond. So before we were being asked about KJ Martin, this is why KJ Martin wasn't projected to start, because we were projecting a front court of Yabusele and Drummond now that Drummond is back from his ankle injury. Anyway, the question we got from Active 555, our top 2 players at each position. As of right now, I'm still under the assumption that there's going to be no Wemby today, but it's kind of up in the air relative to where the situation was before. So let's do this under the fair, Eric. We'll give out exposures here under the assumption that Wemby is going to be out, and then we'll adjust if need be.
Correct.
All right. So point guard for me, the chalk option, D'Angelo Russell. It's hard for him to not be one of your 2 most rostered point guards. And then on the lesser owned side of things, also still a little bit popular today, I think it's a good spot for Tyrese Halliburton going up against a fast-paced Chicago Bulls team. Halliburton's been a complete enigma this year. Sometimes he looks great, sometimes he looks terrible, but $8,300, I like his upside against the Bulls. Those are my 2 favorite point guards.
Yeah, totally with you on that side of things. I will say I currently have like 5% difference between TJ McConnell. That would obviously look a lot better too if you ended up getting Andrew Nembhard ruled out, but I like the Halliburton shout out. I mean, 8,300 now, the fastest paced team in the NBA on the other side. Say what you want about Halliburton's road shooting splits. I mean, I'm not sure if you've looked at this at all, Greg, but he's shooting 24% on the road from 3. He's shooting 43% at home. I mean, it's just a wild disparity that I don't think can really be, that can't be something that happens long-term. It'd be really weird to see somebody there was a long time ago with like the batter eye or the shooting eye in Utah, where that was something that people talked about. Obviously we talked about it in the bubble ad nauseum because shooting percentages were way higher there. But I don't think that you're going to have him be a 24% shooter or have a 20% difference basically between his shooting splits. So Tyrese Halliburton did an awesome tournament play today.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the shooting splits. I mean, it makes sense that players would shoot over the long term a little bit better at home, but not where they'd be shooting, 20% from three on the road and then over 40% at home. It's going to meet somewhere in the middle. And based on the career history of Halliburton, he should be shooting overall for the season, when all is said and done, somewhere around 40% from three. The shooting guard position, Castle certainly going to be one of those guys. It's a little spread out for me behind him. Dalton Connect is a chalky option who I also get to, but if I'm going to go with a lower owned option at shooting guard, Shaedon Sharpe at 5,900.
Yeah, Shaedon Sharpe was the guy that really popped in the Sims that was surprising, and I kind of went back and took a look at it. I'm not going to deal with it too much right now because, obviously that's way, way late, and we'll have that Spurs news, and I can go from the Castle to something else, but Stephon Castle is the best shooting guard play on the slate as of right now. And I probably would still want to play quite a bit of him, sub 5K, as long as he's starting, even with Wemby in there. He's kind of earned a role there. And with no Devin Vassell, I think he's pretty locked up to be the guy out there as opposed to, the Blake Wesleys of the world that they've been going to. Other shooting guard that I really like, just to throw him out there, Benedict Mathurin. I would prefer that we got news that Nembhard was out so that we could just kind of lock him in for more minutes there. But 6,800 just seems like a tag people won't play Benedict Mathurin. You should. He's playing mid-high 30s minutes a night. It's Chicago on the other side. It's just a game environment that I'm going to take shots on guys like Halliburton, guys like Mathurin when they're not that popular. I guess McConnell being way more popular than I thought he was coming into today.
Small forward, that is going to be Keldon Johnson. One for me, once again, just a chalky option who's kind of hard to get away from under the assumption at $4,500, especially. Once again, under the assumption that Wemby does indeed not play. As my second favorite player with small forward eligibility, that is going to be Lauri Markkanen for me.
It is going to be the nuke of the night for me, so we'll hold that one back.
All right. Power forward, that is, already talked to Keldon Johnson. So Jeremy Sokan, same caveat, just need confirmation that Wemby is going to be out. And then LeBron. I like LeBron as a backup option.
Yeah, I like LeBron too. LeBron, now that he's ruled in when he's been out the whole time, it's Atlanta on the other side. Think about these brutal games. Minnesota, Miami. I'll repeat, Minnesota, Miami. We're talking slow-paced, defensively minded. Miami less so this season, but LeBron James, 9,600. He's going to be a full go here. He's only played 31 minutes. He's 9,600. This is a good spot to invest.
And then if we look at the center position, this is going to be Walker Kessler for me as my most overall rostered center. And then Anthony Davis as a pay-up option behind him.
Yeah, my most owned center option right now is Anthony Davis. So that's kind of interesting. And then my favorite tournament play is another expensive center, Domantas Sabonis. I know it's a back-to-back. I know that his assist rate won't be what it is here with Malik Monk, also in that starting unit based on the way we've seen him play that role here of late. But at 9,300, it's just another game environment thing with San Antonio. Obviously, defensively, probably not great to have Wemby out there. So I'll probably adjust things if Wemby ends up being a go. But as I said before, I think I'll try to turn some Sabonis into Wemby if that ends up happening.
Now we've got SC saying, that's what I love about the show. I've learned so much from you guys, game theory and thought process-wise. Appreciate that, SC. Always like the nice messages there. Now, officially, LeBron James before was expected to play, and now he will play. So we've got him officially in tonight. That is LeBron James. And now Will Griffey is asking us, is a Utah-Portland game stack a good idea tonight? DK Largefield, all players are not that expensive. I wouldn't do it. You're foregoing too much value if you're just focusing your lineup on Portland and Utah. There's individual players I like from the Jazz Blazers game, but I mean, other than Walker Kessler, I don't have anybody. And I'm overweight to Shaedon Sharpe, but I wouldn't say that he's one of my overall most rostered players, everything being considered. But I don't know that there's like 6 players or anything like this that I'd want to play in the same lineup.
Yeah, I've discussed this, not this year, but last year I went on a big deep dive when it was during like the NBA All-Star Week or something. I was bored, didn't want to play NHL. I went on a deep dive about overtimes and game stacking potential because it felt like something that other players, I was starting to notice that they were going to like 3 of one game and 3 of another or something, but it really is more dictated by, the price and salary. Like we play a salary game. And because of that, it's really hard to look at a game stack where the only statistic that is shared in the NBA is going to be an assist to a bucket. Like that's how you share points. You don't get it by sharing a steal. You don't get it by sharing a rebound. You want those to be exclusive to the players you roster. So game stacking, it can be effective when you go to overtime or when you project a game to go much higher than somebody else does. but you're probably better off just in the long run not thinking about it.
Let's see what else we have for questions here. We got Price Production just leaving a super chat. Says, small token of appreciation for last night's nuke. Thanks, Eric. There you go. Just money for being on the right side of Io right there. And also, we got a question about him in chat. Are you going back to the well with Io Dosunmu tonight?
I'm going to have some, but I'm going to have way less than what I did yesterday. Part of it, let's just think about the rates. I mean, Kobe White, that was a big omission for me. The other thing is just this Josh Giddey deal. So Josh Giddey, I just believe this to be true. I think Chicago is going to give leash to Io Dosunmu. He is the exponentially better defender between the two of them. And Io's defending numbers don't even look that good this season, but Josh Giddey, we know how abhorrent he is on that side of the floor. Look at his minutes. I mean, he played 32 against Brooklyn, but it was a blowout. Like he finally got it going, 20, 13, and 11. And my whole thing was that I thought that in normal game scripts where Josh Giddey isn't just rolling, which is most of the others, that he's going to play like low mid 20s minutes. And he played 24 minutes yesterday in a game that they won by 15, and they just roll with Io at point. And that's kind of what I've noticed watching a lot of Bulls basketball this season. I tend to watch a lot of like Indy, Chicago, like all these high-paced teams, so that when you get other teams up against them, you kind of see what they do. But like the Bulls have really gone to Io at the point now. He's $400 more expensive. The matchup's better going up against Indy. Not like the Spurs were a bad matchup, but this is a spot where Kobe White's back. Zach LaVine is still playing. You really got none of those guys ruled out. So it's an exponentially worse situation. Can he still do it? Maybe not to the 60. Like, I mean, I got like a 99th percentile outcome yesterday on a nuke, which is fun. And obviously everybody enjoys, but I look at Io as a completely different guy. I currently have 4% of him. So I'm not attached to him in any way, shape, or form today.
Next question is, I have a couple lineups with him, nothing all that significant though. And although that could potentially change if Wemby gets rolled in and we have to find a comparably priced player to some of these Spurs guys to fit in. Like yesterday, one thing that when I had to make updates to my lineups, I'm sure a lot of people got stuck in this situation, but Spurs lineup comes out yesterday. It's so much different than what we're expecting. It's like, oh shit, I've got all this exposure to Bassie and I've got all this exposure to Zach Collins. And it's not to say that I hated Zach Collins. I just didn't want as much as I had at that point in time. And you just had to make pivots. And all of a sudden I land on more Io because of you. I land on more of Mason Plumlee at center. I get to more of, who's the other one last night? THT was another one. I might have already said his name, but it's just, you just pivoted to whoever is comparably priced. Maybe that's where Io ends up coming more into play for us again, is if Wemby's rolled in, we just have to scramble and update our lineups. But here we've got a note for Jason, favorite pivot to the highest owned plays at each position on DK. Okay, so I'm going to answer your question in a way that maybe is a little bit different than the way that you were intending to ask it, but it's the way that I think the answer makes most sense anyway. There's all this chalk on the Spurs, and I want to find out for today, who can I get overweight to on the Spurs that I think has upside? And once again, this is all under the assumption that Wemby is going to be out. Is who can I get to from the Spurs that presents upside to my lineups that doesn't have that same ownership? And to me, the answer is Chris Paul as a pivot, especially off of somebody like of Castle. And overall, I do have more exposure to Castle than I do to Chris Paul. But I think there's an upside in Chris Paul at just 15% ownership. And he does give you leverage and a little bit of a just different way to make up your lineups and still include the Spurs.
Yep, totally agree. Chris Paul is definitely somebody I have more of than the field.
Let's see what we have for our Discord questions. Or actually, Eric, let's do the nuke of the night now, and then we'll go and we'll do a roundup of the rest of the questions for the last 15 minutes and cover whatever injury news comes into. Jacob, if you could, play the nuke of the night animation. I have to say, it really adds a good deal amount more excitement from you and I's end when we could also hear the music. It's one of the benefits of StreamYard as opposed to Zoom. So here it is, Eric. You're riding the highs of all highs when it comes to nuke of the night.
Man.
How are you following up Io Dosunmu? No pressure. You don't have to find somebody else who's 10% on this going to score 70 fantasy points.
All right. Don't expect that. Don't expect that. And this guy, I don't think he would be capable of being the only player on his team and potentially putting up 60. But My thing is I look at the ownership of Keldon Johnson right now. He is 4,500. He had a great game yesterday, scored 28, 5 boards. He's assumed to get all the usage there in the second unit. But for $400 more, we can get to somebody who only played 25 minutes yesterday, did not have a good game, but recently have been playing 32 minutes and sharing some of it alongside Keldon Johnson there. There's no Devin Vassell there, which I definitely think helps this guy. I can't believe I'm saying this. Here we go. We're going to Champagny. We're going to Julian Champagny as your nuke of the night here at small forward.
Okay.
It's just a great tournament play. 41% Keldon Johnson to Champagny 6%. That is just wild to me. I have them projected within 1 fantasy point of each other. I think we have them within 2 fantasy points of each other here at Stokastic. This is just like, for me, when you see a massive chalk piece, give me the guy who gets the first crack if he's going to be way, way, way lower owned. And that is what I look at when I see Julian Champagny. I woke up this morning and I expected to see, Harrison Barnes or Julian Champagny pulling some ownership, and then Keldon Johnson in like the 25-30% range. But Keldon Johnson had a nuclear game yesterday, and he's a great play at 4,500. I'm sure I'm going to have some lineups where I play the two of them alongside each other. But I currently have 28% of a 6% right now with us. Julian Champagny. I think the positionality, small forward only, not a lot of people are going to land there. You're nuke of the night.
All right. I don't hate it. I actually wanted to go with Chris Paul was going to be my guy, but I just gave him out for the answer to that other question. So not going to go in that direction. Let me see. Is there somebody else from San Antonio right now who I'm getting a decent amount of that I could also give out in kind of that same sort of vein? Spurs. Yes, you hit on Champagny there. So no, won't go in that direction. All right. So here's what I'll do instead. I'm going to go with Anthony Davis as the nuke of the night for today. Even though LeBron is playing today, I don't think there's any guarantees that he's going to play a full allotment of minutes, that he's going to be 100%. Maybe they shave a minute or two off his playing time. But with LeBron, at least there being indications that he isn't 100%. My most rostered spend-up option on the entire slate, it is AD for me. And I do think that the Lakers should be leaning on him a little bit more, especially with the struggles of LeBron as of late. And, just running everything through the Sims, I get to about 40% of Anthony Davis. I like the matchup against the Atlanta Hawks. The Lakers also desperately in need of wins at this point. They have looked terrible as of late. And this is a little bit more of a narrative than we would usually kind of bring into our shows when we're doing our analysis, Eric. But what happens oftentimes when teams are losing, 4, 5, 6 games in a row and they're really getting embarrassed and blown out, you just lean on your star players. You give somebody like Anthony Davis a little bit more touches in the paint, have him take a little bit more shots over somebody like a Rui Hachimura. Just really prioritize getting the ball to your star. So Anthony Davis, that is going to be my nuke of the night to help get the Lakers out of the recent funk here.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm curious
what came
what
in
Atlanta
for
does.
questions.
Can I throw out Onyeka Okongwu also as a tournament play? I think that they could go to him earlier if Capella is getting beat up by Anthony Davis. So one guy that I boosted in the Sims, I have 3 guys that I boosted in the Sims. One, Julian Champagny, because I just wanted to get to even a little bit more than, when I upload the projections and have it all set there. The other guy was Onyeka Okongwu, who there are a lot of iterations of that lineup that just look way better with him. The other is DeAndre Hunter at 5K. So another small forward, power forward, where eventually we're going to see him play like 30, 32 minutes, and Ricochet might go back to the shadow realm. We've already started to see the tides turn that direction. He only played 19 minutes last game out, Ricochet. All of their best lineups, DeAndre Hunter is a part of right now for Atlanta. It's a different team right now. I've enjoyed, backing them financially in a couple of spots, but wanted to throw those out. I think that's kind of a sneaky game environment. And AD, Onyeka Okongwu, those are 2 great center plays, I think.
All right, let's go into Discord now to see what our subs have for us. And then also, if you guys want to check out our betting tools that we have over at OddsShopper, our new Portfolio EV tools, we do have a sale going on over there where if you guys sign up for Portfolio EV, there's a link down below in the YouTube description box. It's the same tools that I've been using for my bankroll thread. If you guys follow that along over on Twitter, promo code CyberWeek, all capital letters. This is for Cyber Monday, which was on Monday, which you guys probably put that together. Promo code is Cyber Week, all capital letters, SYBERWEEK. Sign up with that promo code through the link down below in the YouTube description box. 70% off your first month of Portfolio EV. So that's going to be less than $30 if you guys sign up for the betting tools that I use for myself and really help me be profitable. And we have first a super chat from CG DFS. Great info as always, fellas. Love the insights and the discussions pre-lock every night. And yeah, guys, go follow CG DFS as well over on Twitter. He's also part of our betting product over in Tails. So if you guys want to sign up for his betting stuff, you can go check that out from Tails over on OddsShopper as well. Discord questions. And hey, my stuff's actually in order tonight. That's nice. It's not all out of order. JEW, thoughts on a good amount of Horford and Max and Horford for DK single entry? I mean, I don't know exactly what we mean by a good amount of Horford, but he is not somebody I'm getting myself to.
0 Horford.
Yeah, no go on Horford for me. I get it from a standpoint of there is no Kristaps Porzingis, but also think about it this way. Porzingis has only played in, a few games this year because he's out the beginning of the year. How often were you playing Al Horford at the start of the year in a similar situation? You probably weren't. So Al Horford, to me, not really somebody who I want to be getting to. Next question here. It is from, actually hit that one. That was the process asking us about Io. We've got Emax saying he just woke up from a nice Friday after work nap. Any players that we are ROI boosting late? So for myself, no. There was a lot of guys that I was kind of planning on doing it with, but as of right now, here's what I have going. I hardly have any exposure to the first game on the slate. I've got a couple lineups with Paul George. I've got a couple lineups with Mo Wagner, but nothing really all that significant from the first game on the slate. What I'm really doing with my lineups is I'm going to wait till we get confirmation on that Wemby news, which is going to come. You guys are going to want to watch Josh and I on playback after this because a couple of reasons. First, we don't officially know whether Wemby is going to be in or out. Another part of it too, who knows what the hell the Spurs starting lineup is going to be, because none of us would have guessed what it was going to be yesterday, where it wasn't Zach Collins or Charles Bassey starting. So I want to make sure that I've got all my options open for 7:30, and then I'm going to make some decision points. But yeah, there's nothing specific right now that I'm making changes to. I'll have to wait to see what comes around at 7:30 for yourself, Eric.
If Steve Kerr weren't such a cuck biscuit, I probably would feel good about trying to jam in some Golden State. I don't feel good about jamming Golden State.
There we go. So because of the what did you call him? The
cuck biscuit.
Yeah, because he's a cuck biscuit. That's the first time I've heard that one. I've never heard that before.
Came up with it now. It made me happy.
There we go. Yeah, I'm a fan of cuck bagel myself, but cuck biscuit, there's another one that we could add to the lexicon.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Elder saying, sorry if I missed it, but does a low-owned Giannis not look decent? Depends what you mean by decent. The problem with Giannis, I have a couple of lineups with him, is he's very, very... So a few things.
12K with Lillard in. That's the problem. He's 12K with Lillard in. Taking on Boston.
And Middleton's back. And there's not that much value on the slate. It's all those things combined. He's difficult to get to because of his price point. Middleton's back, which lowers his projection. And then on top of it as well, he's power forward center, which also isn't great positionality. So does he look decent? Not really to me. If you have a low-owned Giannis, it's not the end of the world. It's just, what are the opportunity costs of you fitting him in that lineup? I personally can't find that many value options I love for cheap.
Yeah, the value is very, very thin outside of, if Wemby isn't going to play here, which again, I think we are all still on the side of, I'm going to have a lot of San Antonio. You're going to have a lot of San Antonio. We're all going to have a lot of San Antonio and hope that isn't a real thing. But yeah, man, there's just no way that I can really pay 12K for Giannis against the best team in the NBA here. It's really thin. It's tough for me.
Next question. It is from Alucard wants to know LeBron or AD for a small field single entry. I have more exposure to AD.
Yeah, AD.
Yeah, people in chat saying that Giannis is in their FanDuel lineups. I get it, but the question we got was specifically, at least I assumed it was asked about DraftKings because Elders won 2 DK tournaments in the last week, so I assumed it was a DraftKings question. So I answered it related to DraftKings. I agree it's different for FanDuel, but I believed it was a DraftKings question. Einstein wants to know, any interest in DeMar DeRozan for tonight? I've got around 10% of DeRozan. The price point does seem a little low on him at first glance, but I do think the inclusion of Malik Monk into the starting lineup for the Kings, it really hurts the production of the other core guys there. So it's just, he's a high usage guy. He's somebody who also plays with the ball in his hand a lot. He's a good distributor. And it's having him in that starting lineup as opposed to, say, like Keon Ellis, it's just a different usage guy. It hurts De'Aaron Fox. It hurts Sabonis. It hurts Keegan Murray. It hurts DeRozan. It hurts all of them from a DFS perspective. So I've got a couple lineups with DeRozan, but not anything I'm going crazy with.
With you. It's just bad. He's a good real life player that also just doesn't play defense. So it's kind of a weird situation. Like Sacramento has had no identity for years. It's just so weird to me, the pieces that they ensemble, because there's talent on certain spots. And I mean, they should have just rolled with Halliburton and Fox and saw where that took them, but we'll never know. We'll never know.
All right. I believe we are caught up on questions in Discord. So let's make sure that we've got you. We're all caught up on the super chats as well. First things first. How are you doing on your lineups, Eric?
I'm just about done.
All right. For the first game on the slate, just because it's, something, we got some late news that we're still waiting on, which once again, to let you guys know, we are waiting for an official update on Victor Wembanyama, who, from what we've heard, is going to warm up to see if he's good to play. My best guess is still that he sits. That's what Eric agrees with as well. In our projections on the site, we've zeroed him out, so we still have him out, at least as of now. But other news we're waiting on, other than the official update on Wemby, is what the hell the Spurs starting lineup is going to be. Then we got Andrew Wiggins is questionable. Scoot Henderson also questionable. What is your bet, assuming Wemby is out? What is your best guess for the starting lineup for the Spurs? Do they go with the same guys from last night, or do they mix it up?
Assuming, that's a big assumption. Obviously, we're talking Wemby, but I think it goes Paul, Castle, Champagny, Barnes, Sohan, same starting five.
I don't know. I have a feeling they mix it up. I don't know. My best guess is it's the same as yesterday, but I don't think that's actually going to be the lineup. I think they're going to do something weird.
Pop's not coaching. But you got to be there in spirit. You got to do it, Pop. You got to get Pop still.
Yeah, I think they just play what they believe is the best lineup for them to win, and sometimes it's different. Maybe they do go with Zach Collins tonight because they need a little bit more size potentially to match up with Sabonis. I wouldn't be stunned if Zach Collins starts.
I wouldn't be stunned either, but that'd be good. What do we have Collins projected for? It's 5K. Yeah, if you were to start, you're going to have a drastically different outlook on his minutes. I'd be curious, though. Champagny would have to be the guy who probably got benched, and I don't think that's going to happen.
No, they could have Sohan come off the bench. Remember, Sohan wasn't expected to start yesterday.
I know, but it was his first game back that was his first game back that he didn't start, and then he just went right back to starting. So I don't know. It's different matchups, different situations. Every game is different. There's a true center on the other side of this one. We'll see. I'm not sold on anything here at the moment.
Just a couple minutes left to go here before we get to lock. And then Josh and I are going to be over in playback, trying to figure out what the hell to do with Wemby, waiting for the Spurs starting lineup, looking for that Andrew Wiggins update. So if you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure to join Josh and I for all the latest updates in playback after this. But Eric, a couple minutes left to go here. What are you noticing in your lineups that maybe is different than what you expected on the final run? Maybe somebody that you got more exposure to than you thought you were from the first game, or anything else?
Yeah, I think the Indy-Chicago game, the one thing we haven't talked about that I think was always going to show up in my lineups and was always going to show up in yours and anybody else who's using our projections today and doing things correctly, you're going to get to a lot of like cheap sub 4K pieces. If you're going to give me Obi Toppin or Jalen Smith and hope things break their way, might as well be in a total with in a game with a 247.5 total, where even if they play limited minutes on a slate where there's no like slam dunk value, these are the kind of slates that I'm okay embracing some of that. They're popular. They're pretty darn popular. Also say I ended up with 10% Tristan Da Silva. That's like my main rooting interest from the early game. He's 3,200. He's coming off the bench. I still don't think Wendell Carter will be like a full go here in some of these spots. And I don't know. It just feels like on a very thin value slate. His PRA was like 8.5 or 9.5 or something before we got news Jonathan Isaac was ruled out. I'm not sure where it landed at, but all I know is I'm more than happy to try to embrace a little bit of that just because of the price tag.
Yeah, I've got a couple lineups with some of the Magic guys, but I really didn't want to be too aggressive with them just because I was afraid that if I go in and I say, hey, I want Mo Wagner to show up in more lineups because of Jonathan Isaac being out, I mean, like a significant amount more lineups, that I'd end up regretting it later if better value ended up opening up as we go here. So I'm hoping that none of the, like I've got a little bit under 10% of Mo Wagner. So if he goes out and scores like 25 fantasy points, I'd be perfectly okay with that. But yeah, my ideal scenario would be that none of these cheap-ish Magic bench guys go out and score like 35 or anything.
Yep, I'm with you. They're saying even with Nembhard in, yeah, I mean, the thing about Nembhard being in is that's kind of annoying, but it's a game environment thing too. I mean, you don't run into totals like this too much. Pretty much everything looks like a great tournament play to me from that game. Hard to really know how it breaks. Again, I don't believe the Halliburton shooting splits. I'm not buying into that whatsoever. But as I work through that game specifically, whether it's Jalen Smith, whether it's Obi Toppin, that's the one thing I don't think we had really talked about at all. I'm okay with them being just lineup filler at the moment.
Yeah, and then one other thing as well about Nembhard being back, I would be surprised if he plays a massive amount of minutes.
Same. And that'll keep Benedict Mathurin being a guy that I want to take some shots on. Not anything extreme by any means, but the positionality, the price tag, everything about it. I think people are still going to be staying away from that one. This feels like a spot where Benedict Mathurin just wants it. So that's terrible analysis. But overall, I look at that game environment. There's a lot of viable things with it. And obviously, just check out Playback now. This Spurs thing is such a cluster. I really don't know what's going on for it. I still assume Wemby isn't playing. Maybe he's just getting a workout in or something. But you're going to want to jump in Playback and check out Josh and Greg breaking everything down because that is monumental to this slate.
Yeah, Brian Sullivan asked, how do we find you on Playback? Should be easy now. I just dropped the link a bunch of times there in the YouTube chat. So if you guys want to join Josh and I over on Playback, where we are heading right now, touch that link. It'll bring you right over there, and you watch Josh and I for another hour here waiting for Spurs news and whatever else ends up breaking. So if you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, come join Josh and I over on Playback. Who the hell knows what the Spurs are going to do? I certainly don't, so come join us. We're going to wait and find out. Have a great night, guys. Have a great weekend. And we'll be back here for NBA Live Before Lock on the YouTube on Monday. But for now, Playback.